and someone who is like growing and learning and healing and has come from a past where enabling occurred. Society obviously has gotten us here. And now I am in a position where I am ready to take my control back. And I'm wondering how I can do that and not enable my husband.
I do think that the topic of moms is really important. I know I've had a few people who've come up to me and said, can you guys talk about moms and why there's so much pressure on us as moms to do everything, right? We take the kids to the doctors and the dentist and make sure that they get up in the morning and get them ready for school or pack their lunches, make sure that you're home to be there when they get home from school. And then you're running them around to practice and doing homework, and not to negate on dads. I don't want to do that, but I love my husband. He's fantastic. But I often feel like for moms, it's second nature to just say, okay, we did this. Let's move on to the next thing, the next thing, and the next thing, rather than saying, hey, husband, I know you're really busy. Can you come do this while I go do something else? I feel like we as moms, and you can tell me if it's the same situation for you, but I feel like I have to ask, where for us as moms, it's just second nature. And how do we, why is it second nature?
I mean, I can't answer that, right? But have you heard of the term the default parent?
No, but I feel like
yes, the default
yeah.
parent. When we're making plans and it comes up, like everything defaults on mom. Dad can do whatever he wants, whenever he wants. And I don't have to think about, he doesn't have to think about who's putting the kids to bed tonight. It is an immediate, mom's putting the kids to bed tonight.
Yes.
Mom is doing this. So that means I can plan my day like this. It's never even a conversation.
Yes, I would agree with you.
And someone who is like growing and learning and healing and has come from a past where enabling occurred. Society obviously has gotten us here. And now I am in a position where I am ready to take my control back. And I'm wondering how I can do that and not enable my husband to be able to do whatever he wants, whenever he wants.
I love that word, enablement. I think that is the biggest thing we do. We enable them to make it so we're the ones who are doing everything. And to get there, right, we talk about boundaries a lot. It's setting our boundaries and saying, this is what I can handle today. I was listening to a TikToker recently, and he said that every single day they come home, or the husband and wife come home, and they look at each other and say, what percentage can they give? And I love that.
That gave me chills.
Because there are some days where I could give 80%. But then there are some days where I can only give 5. Yep. And same thing for my husband. There are days where he can only give 5 or 10%. And so knowing, Brittany, what percentage are you today? Okay, then can I pick up that extra 20%? If it's supposed to be a 50-50% relationship, yes, it is such a team. And it's not, I give 100% and you give 100%. We have to try and get to 100% together. Some days, maybe I have to just sit on the couch and, decompress from my day. And I might not be like that for the rest of the night, but maybe I'm going to be like that for a couple hours. Hey, I need you to do the laundry tonight. Or I really don't have the capacity. I just drove 45 minutes home. I don't have the capacity to drive another half hour to take my son to basketball and then sit there for an hour and then come all the way back. And it's exhausting. Sometimes there has to be that give and take because we are the default parent. And sometimes it's too much.
It is. And like, there's even the term like the house manager. Like, it's not just mom anymore. Mom's got to do a lot of things, but like, who's managing the house? You described some examples that are like very physical. Like, I have to go to basketball practice. I have to go do this. I have to go do this. But the mental load that it takes to plan how you are going to do all of those things cannot be forgotten.
Yes.
Just because it's not tangible and you can't see it does not mean it is weighing. Like, planning everything, doctor's appointments, how am I going to get to A to B and get them to bed on time so that they are good human beings?
Yes. Yeah, and then make sure that they're not on the electronics as much, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because that's another thing too, is parents, especially. So, my son is 9, and I'll get into that routine if I'm not having that conversation with my husband at the percentage of what I'm at, and it's myself and my son, and I can't give my son 50 to 60%, I will allow him to just spend time on his electronics, which is not okay because he needs interactive time. And you've gotten really good at pausing and saying, I know I need to spend time with my kids. And I've been trying to work on that a lot too. But it can be so difficult because we're one person.
Right.
And something else came up recently talking about house managers. My husband said, hey, I need you to schedule me a dentist appointment. What? You know where we go. You know all the things. Yeah. Schedule it yourself. I am not your mother. And I'll laugh with his mother. She and I have a lot of good back and forth conversations when it comes to, mothering and everything like that. And I'll call her. I'll say, you did teach him to schedule his own dentist appointments, right? Because he can do it himself. But no. So I did. I scheduled his dentist appointment. I know. Enablement.
Yep. You said it, not me. Yes. But it makes me think like, okay, this, like, it's a pattern, right? It's not just our husbands. It's a lot of husbands.
Yes.
And the nerd in me wants to go figure out why. Like, I want to start doing the research. Why can men not schedule their own appointments? There's a reason to everything.
They've been catered to their whole lives. I mean, even if you think about all the way back in time, even if we go back to the 1950s, we stayed home, we cooked dinner, we cleaned the house, we didn't work, they went to work, they came home, and everything was handed to them, right? Now we're out in the workforce. Many of us are still just, work from home moms or just moms, right? I hate that word just, right? We talked about that in the past too. Not just moms, because that is a big job. That is a job all on its own.
Yeah.
And I don't get it. Why is it that we get to wake up, get the kids ready, clean the house? I don't cook dinner, but you do. Cook dinner, do the homework with the kids, take them to the places, do all the things, get them to bed at night. First of all, when do we have time? And they come home. They go to work and they come home. Now, I will also say I have to give my husband praise because if he listens to this, he's going to kick my ass. But he does. He is the cook. I have to praise him so much. He is the cook in the family. Love him for that. It is not my area of expertise. And he does all the big stuff, right? He takes care of the pool. Yesterday he spent like 5 hours cutting down trees. And so he does. It's not that I can't do it, I just won't. But think about something like that where you do it a couple times a year.
Right.
Whereas, I mean, the house needs to be cleaned every day. The laundry needs to be constantly done. Feed the dogs, feed the people,
Yeah. And I had joked with my husband about doing this activity where we put like family at the top and we make, instead of a pro-con chart, it's a Brittany husband chart. And we list all of the things that we do to contribute to the family. And like, I almost want to do it just so he's aware of the things he's not aware of.
Yes.
Because I think that's part of it. They don't know.
They don't know, or they don't realize it, right? We'll be doing something and they walk by and they see it, but it doesn't connect.
Right.
Oh, hey, I should have done that. No. It doesn't connect at all.
They don't think about it in that way. And part of me wonders, like, because my husband is a great human being and an amazing father.
He really is.
If he saw the list, would he be like, oh shit, like I need to step it up in these ways, but I didn't know that.
Yes. Or, right, what are the things that they're doing that we don't know about?
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Right? Because it could, at the end of the day, us as women, we like to say, God, I'm doing it all. What are you doing? Because we can be resentful.
What story are we telling ourselves?
Yes. And there have been many, many times where I'll have to like enter my husband's space because he has his own space. I have my own space. And that's where a lot of really good conversations happen when I enter his space. And I'll say, I'm upset because of this. And here are all the things that I'm feeling. I feel like I've had to run around and do all this stuff today and you are not being my partner. And he will listen and say, okay, well, these are all the things that I did today too.
Right.
And I go, Oh.
Right. Like, did you know you're supposed to clean your air filters once a month?
No, but he does that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I didn't know. And that would not get done.
I learned, this is really stupid, but a couple years ago, I learned, it's been longer than a couple years, that you had to clean out the trap in the dryer.
That holds all the lint?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So he comes in one day and he's laughing at me. And he says, you realize you're going to start a fire one day. All this lint from all the clothes. You know it gets trapped somewhere, right?
Oh
the
my
trolls
God.
don't just magically take it away.
I'm dying a little inside.
Yeah. So it's been longer than a couple years, but I did know that. But also, I mean, I'll see these videos too where people are tearing apart the inside of their washer and it's got all this gunk. I won't do that.
Oh no. Same with the dishwasher.
Yeah. Oh, God.
And the humidifier. Like, let me tell you, the humidity in our house is perfection. Because he makes sure to control all of that. Things that I did not think about. So I really think you brought up a good point. Like, you're entering his space and you're having communication. Like, all of this boils down to communication and advocating for yourself. And I think that's where women fall short a little bit, is like, all of the things that we wish they would do. Have you ever complained about them to him?
Yes.
Would you say that is advocating for yourself?
In the past, I probably would say yes. Now I would say no.
Right.
All they hear is bicker. Like, please, like, what are you coming out into my space again? What are you going to come yell at me about? What are you going to come bitch at me about? Please tell me what I'm doing wrong now.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And it doesn't matter what it is. But all of a sudden, like, if I come out and say, hey, Brittany, this is something that made me really upset today. Here's how I'm feeling, and I'd like to resolve it. How do we have that really good, candid, authentic conversation so that I'm not walking into a space and putting him on the defense?
Right, because exactly, that is what a complaint does. And I think it starts with us and figuring out our needs first. Because if we cannot be honest to what we really need, like, I think some women, I know I do, feel like, but it's okay because I can do it all, right? I'm super mom. And
we're all super mom.
And we don't have to ask for help. And so we get frustrated that we do have to ask for help because we think they should just give it to us automatically.
They should be able to read our minds.
Yes. And like, that's just not reality.
Yes.
And so how can I be really honest with myself in sharing what my needs are? And they're not a one-time thing. And how do we share those needs on a consistent basis so that nobody feels like they're doing it all?
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that you just said that. Sharing it on a consistent basis is, think about any type of message you've heard. You didn't remember it the first time. You didn't remember it the second time either. It's a continuous, but again, it's not a badgering. Right. It's, let's sit down and have these conversations again, and why it's important to me, and how can you help, and what matters to you, and how can I help? He and I had a really, really good conversation a couple years ago. And that's also when we did our 5 love languages. And so we sat down and I said, what is it out of our marriage that you wish that I was doing more? And we wrote the things down. Right. And vice versa. It's really cool just sitting down and spending an hour with your partner to figure out what do they need, and then how can you bridge that gap? If you're not having those conversations, then I don't know.
Right. And I would be I'm not having those conversations. And so for me, one of the goals would be like, how cool would it be to have weekly sit downs for an hour where we could reflect on the past week? Not just what our needs are and where we need support, what percentage we're at, something like that, but also like our wins. Like, you were a fantastic partner this week because you did this.
Yes. And that makes them feel good too.
Right.
And also, but both.
Yes.
Right. Here's where I could have utilized your help a little bit more, but what was happening that day or during that time that like you couldn't, right? Maybe they could only give 15%. And so we have to, as people, we have to realize that just because you're in a marriage, we're still 2 separate humans. Yeah. And navigating living with somebody And dealing with another person who has their own needs is really hard, because sometimes I'll sit there and say, you should know exactly what's going on. You should know what I'm feeling, how I'm feeling. Don't talk to me this way, because obviously it puts me on the defense, right? We talk about trauma responses. Please don't come at me all aggro. And he's like, I'm just talking passionate. And I'm like, you make me want to go into a corner.
You said that? I'm so sorry. Oh, yeah. We just came up with almost like not a safe word, but like this conversation is not working for us anymore.
Love that.
Okay. So there's this, it's just like a finger motion of some sort. And when we're having the conversation, it's actually like a lot deeper than that. It's essentially this.
Okay.
And this. So for the viewers who are seeing, like my thumb is tucked into my hand, and I'm squeezing my thumb. So like this, it is the picture of your brain, essentially. Okay. And so your knuckles are your thinking brain.
Okay.
And the thumb is the emotional brain. Now there are fancy words for that. I'm not going to get into that. But what happens is when a core wound is like hit, that's a trigger, right? You immediately feel danger. And so a core wound is hit usually because he says something that, takes me back to my childhood that really bothered me. And what happens is, this is where the saying comes in, you flip your lid.
Oh.
Okay. And so now the knuckles, which is your thinking brain, is offline. You have no access to it at all. And you only have access to your emotional brain because this is what puts you in survival mode.
Yes.
And so you are literally just talking through emotions. And like, if two people are in that,
then you're not resolving anything.
Nothing. Pointless conversation. Even if one person is in it and you're trying, like, it's still a pointless conversation. You need to both come back online to be in a state where you can logically talk.
How can you? Okay, because there have been many times, even this week, my husband and I have not been, and it's not to his fault, and I don't think it's to my fault either. We just have not been able to connect logically or emotionally. Like I said, like he'll say something and my lid is off, or vice versa. And how do you get back to that space? Have you figured that out yet?
So separating, for sure, for one, and knowing like what, usually once you flip your lid, you are in a stress response, either fight, flight, or freeze. And so once you've practiced with some nervous system regulation, somatic work, you'll know what works for you. So for me, if I'm in my flight response where all I want to do is yell, I need to do the opposite. So I need to do some type of deep breathing, breath work, something like that. If I am in freeze where like I am standing there and I am stuck and I don't even know what to do, what to think, where to go, I'll go for a walk and I'll do the opposite. Make movement. Music helps me a lot. Like I put together a 2-hour playlist of just like upbeat music that makes me want to dance and feel good, and that will immediately shift. So the goal is to always shift your stress response in those moments. And usually it's the opposite. So if you're really heightened, you want to do something that will slow you down. If you're stuck and slow, you want to do some type of movement.
Interesting.
And then come back together.
I love that. I love that so much. That's great. I'll have to use that in the future because, because relationships, they go at their highs and lows.
Always. And this is not like men suck.
No.
Right? Like,
absolutely not.
It is just...
Well, because think about it too. Even everything we've just said, like the men could walk away and say, oh, this is good information for me to use for my wife too.
Yeah. It's communication, advocating for yourself, and working together as a team.
And boundaries.
We could talk about boundaries. That's a whole other conversation.
All day. We can have a conversation about boundaries all day long.
For sure. Because one thing I think I learned this week, setting boundaries with people who have done wrong is very easy.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't say very easy. It still takes time. It is easier. Setting boundaries with the people that you love
is hard.
Yes.
It is, because if somebody's done wrong to you, 9 times out of 10, you will just put your walls up and be like, That's my boundary. You can stay over there. There's a lot of non-emotion. And with people you love, you'll say, okay, well, here's my boundary, but then you're going to lower it and lower it and lower it. And now they're stepping back on you. And now it's upsetting you. Not only have they upset you, but you've upset yourself because you lowered your boundary.
For sure.
And that's upsetting.
I think we might need to have another conversation
just on boundaries.
So let us know, leave us a review and tell us if you want to hear about boundaries.
Yeah. We can talk about boundaries all day.
Yeah.
But yes, back to talking about, well, let's bring it back in. We'll talk about, just that mom life a little bit more. Probably to get ready to end today's conversation. If you are a mom who is struggling through the same issues that we are, which is we are what did you call it? The default parent. I love that. Or at least you feel like you're the default parent. Really start to sit down with your spouse or your partner and start having really clear communication. Express to them what your needs are. Find out what their needs are too, right? Because it's a two-way street. It is a teamwork. And maybe implement one of those things that we talked about earlier with coming together every single day and figuring out what percentage you're at, so that the other person knows if they have to pick up any slack, or if you have to pick up certain slack too.
Absolutely. I'm gonna go home and try some of these.
I love it. I love it so much. Yeah. Awesome. Well, we are really excited to see you next week. Thank you for tuning in, and
have a great day.
Have a great day.